Welcome, everybody, and how about a congratulations for 2 weeks of filming in the can? We are here with actor, producer, filmmaker Stephen Baldwin and director, writer, professor Matthew Webb. Give it up for these two guys. And my name is Lance Clark, and I am also a professor of film here at Huntington University and producer of the Wayfaring Stranger. And we're looking forward to just a great conversation with you, both of you, on our first feature film here at Huntington University, the Wayfaring Stranger. And I guess I'll kick it off with you, Stephen. Tell us a little bit about what drew you into this project and why.
Drew me in. Well, I think instinct drew me in. I think, when you hear a story or you read a script, I know in the first 10 pages if I'm interested. Now I'm not suggesting that to anyone. And thank goodness I have a great manager, producing partner, John McGalliard, who sometimes goes, "Did you see page 76? Because something really fabulous happens there." So I'm a little stubborn in that way, but it's part of my zeal, so I don't apologize for it. But my point is, in my world and in my life, I'm going so fast and I have so many opportunities coming at me, I just usually don't have the time to process stuff. And that's not Hollywood film creative stuff. I do lots of other things. I do consultancy for marketing for Apple and all kinds of different stuff. Just because they like very creative, creepy people, just like people who can see things that folks that went to Ivy League schools don't see. And usually, some of the most interesting ideas come from the most unusual places. So, I work with skateboarders, you know that. Skateboarders now, the skateboarders I worked with 25 years ago, doing little documentaries and stuff, are literally some of the top cinematographers in Hollywood today. From learning how to use a camera, skateboarding. But you have to go to school. I shouldn't say that, this is a film school. But anyway, I'm saying that because I want more skateboarders to come to Huntington University.
We do.
I digress, forgive me. But I started reading this script, and I just felt like it was a story that is in the minority these days. I felt like it was a story that doesn't get a chance to get told these days, and that has nothing to do with the faith-based at all. This film is a great story that encompasses a powerful journey of faith. So the powerful journey of faith thing is wonderful. I get those offers every week. But the story was incredible. And I'm going to wait until the right timing of this interview, sir, to you make the big reveal, Lance, okay, about who the story is about. So, and additionally, that's part of the story. So for me, the story was so sweet and so authentic and so simply powerful that Hollywood doesn't do that much anymore. They don't tell real, raw, relatable, people-to-people stories. They just, everything's marvelous now, if you know what I'm saying. And, I'm a little weird. If they offered me a huge Marvel movie tomorrow, I wouldn't have the time. I wouldn't have the time. Because there's enough of that. I'd rather do this.
Matt, how about you? You've been with us a while. Tell us a little about your journey with this story and what your journey has been with it so far.
Yeah. So September of 2019, you and I were talking about seeing if we could find our first feature film to make. I had written a script and we did a read through of it, and it was just going to be way too big to try to do here. So we thought, okay, well let's just explore some of the other ideas that we have, and we sat in Starbucks just around town here, and he started saying, you know, I have this story of this guy growing up from when I was a kid. He was a part of our church community, and you know, you revealed the story of Glenn Frank and the Clarks, and you got to the end of the story, and I thought, this is already a movie. All I have to do is like get it on paper, it was just a joy to be able to dive into these characters and to dive into the real people. That's also probably one of the hardest things, was as a writer, remembering to honor the actual people. You know, I know Janet. She was my kids and my wife's piano teacher. I know Lance. I work with him. Troy and I used to travel the country, singing and dancing and acting together.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
The Clarks and I go way back. And there's a lot of pressure in that, but there was also just a lot of excitement for me, and to be able to try to bring Glenn's story to light has been one of the hardest and most rewarding things I've ever had the opportunity to do.
If you could summarize a story in 60 to 90 seconds, how would you summarize it? Tell the story in 60 to 90 seconds.
Yeah, you'd think after all this time I'd be better at this. It's a story about a pastor and his family in rural Michigan who are trying desperately to bring these tiny rural churches together under one roof. A son, a pastor's kid who wants to find his own identity, and a washed-up country singer who brings hope to both the pastor and the pastor's kid. The pastor's kid gets the opportunity to learn how to play guitar and try to do something different than the expectations of him. The pastor gets a carpenter and a partner to be able to try to build this project together. And the community gets this challenge. What do we do when wayfaring strangers come into our midst? How do we welcome them in? How might we play a role in their transformation? And equally, how might they transform our lives through the grace of God? So,
you know, Stephen, you've been on over 126 films.
Old.
Not saying that. Not saying that at all. You are a grandparent, I hear.
Although you are a grandparent.
You're
Did
a
you guys
grandparent.
hear that?
So am I. And tell us a little bit about the uniqueness of this project, where we incorporated professional crew with students who are recently graduated or current students. And what did you observe about that, and what can you speak to that?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, and I might get in trouble. But I directed a music video. The first thing I ever directed was a music video about 15 years ago. And the young man who was the singer, who was a Christian guy, was kind of like this punk rock kid. So he's like a punk rock kind of Devo, kind of techno worship singer. So I'm like, yeah, I'll direct that video, bro. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I just know it's so different, I'd like to give it a shot. Well, he went to Florida State University and the film school. So I worked with all of the students from that school. And I'll make you guys laugh right now, because literally I came from, Panavision. And when it was a slight oxymoron, because here I am, like, we're all set, everything's cool, test the cameras, this, that. Well, we shoot the first shot of the music video, and these guys are like, I'm like, hey, let's do this. And they were like, okay. And then 4 guys come out like little aliens and come around this camera and start going. 4 people are around a red. This was 15 years ago. Okay? Your guys, right? So, but this is my point, is my experience here was quite surprising. It was quite surprising. And I was very honest with you about this behind the scenes. I just said, look, this is going to go a certain way. And I said, quite frankly, Lance, you hired me to do something. So when I'm on the set and I see mistakes being made, I'm saying nothing because we don't have the time. Remember I said that? Mm-hmm. How long have I been here?
A little over a week.
Little over a week. I think in all of my experience on the set with this film, I saw 3 mistakes, technically, which is less than the normal professional set. I'm not just blowing smoke. That's like, you guys did a great job, meaning, and you have to factor in how much we're doing in a day, and the pressure's on. So although there are the normal delays, I didn't see the sound guy not doing what he's supposed to do because he didn't know how. There was nobody doing something wrong. It was more just the struggle of the process. Mm-hmm. So
let's give it up. Snaps to you guys. Matt, tell us. Oh, you want to
no, that's it.
Matt, talk to us about where this concept came from, uniting our students with the professionals, and why are we doing it like this?
Yeah, well, so about 12 years ago, you and I had the opportunity to bring a feature film here and just film part of it with the students. And we really experienced this mentor-mentee thing in a pretty powerful way. It was rough just learning that process that first time through, but we saw a lot of potential, and that was exciting to me. In fact, our line producer, Ron, was on that project too. And it was just, for me, it was neat to see my team coming from Los Angeles and partnering with these students and seeing an editor sit down with a student editor and walk them through how to process red footage, and seeing a producer working with a first AD and teaching them, like, okay, this is how you start to run a set, and this is how you do, this is how you do the paperwork, and so it was, that kind of gave, I think, both of us an idea that this could be really, really cool. Fast forward 10 years, maybe more. No, I guess right around 10 years. We were sending all of our students to Los Angeles who wanted to go in the spring of their senior year. And they went to the Los Angeles Film Studies Center. And they spent a semester there getting an internship in the industry and getting to make short films with students from all around the country. And it was a great opportunity, but COVID shut that down. And we thought, man, what are we going to do to provide this really unique experience for our students? And so we looked back and we said, if we can't send our students to Los Angeles, maybe we can bring professionals here and do more of that mentoring thing that we leaned into those years ago. And when you hired me back in 2016, we had the dream of, let's see if we can't try to make features together. That could be amazing. And so we just tried to marry those things, and the university got behind it, and we were able to bring in all these mentors from all over the country. And I gotta say, every single day I'm on set and I get to see, even this week, just a couple of examples. The sound mixer sitting while we're waiting to start filming and just talking the boom operator through all these different kinds of things and answering all these questions. The boom operator the student boom operator has all these questions and peppering back and forth. Watching our cinematographer teach and train and ask questions. Yesterday we were on set and in the mic, as the camera team is putting all this stuff together, firing off these little questions. What does this do? Do you remember what this is called? How does this work? And having the students, as they're putting the cameras together, firing back questions and answers and looking at each other like, do you know this one? I'm not sure if I know this one. And learning, right? And every day I'm just watching over and over, whether it's with wardrobe or with sound or camera or art or, I mean, all of the different departments, production. It's just been awesome to see these mentors leaning into really training and teaching our students to know the craft and hopefully go out into their careers and make a difference.
You know what's cool for me about that is they're going to be better than us.
Oh yeah.
They're going to be better than us. And there's no better way for them to get there than what you just said. The process.
Yeah.
See, what you just said was, I'm not on that radio, right? So I didn't know any of that was happening when I was on set. But how cool is that? Because in that mentor-mentee, like Huntington University and media arts that's innovative, guys. Nobody's doing that.
Yeah.
But the more important thing is, for me, to put like a little cherry on top of that, if I may, is in the learning that you just talked about, what I've learned is, like when I said the Frank Capra thing last night, you know, the more in the mentor-mentee process we let them process, let them discover it for themselves.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Yeah, but what if I did it like this? If it's wrong, tell them it's wrong. But what if they turn to you and go, yeah, but what if I did it like this? And you went, gosh, that's a great, like,
Yeah.
they're gonna bless us. They're gonna bless the world through that innovation and that wisdom and that knowledge if we let them bring that process. That's what's fascinating to me. So kudos to that whole idea.
Yeah, one of the most wonderful things. So we told the students early on, because they've been readying for this film all semester in the spring. They were working with the mentors and learning new things about the different departments they're going to be working in. And we invited the students, as they were being mentored by the professionals, to then pay it forward and mentor the underclassmen. And being able to, know that I'm learning, but also as I'm learning, I have things to share with other people in the future. A couple of days ago, so our gaffer, who is just an incredible mentor, has been guiding and teaching and training these students in the craft of lighting. And we had a new student come on midweek to try to fill in some gaps. And one of the students who's been being mentored for the last few weeks pulled that new student aside and started mentoring them and just saying, look, it's really hard. The days are long, but you're going to learn so much. So just soak in everything that you can. And so, like, I get to see the mentors doing what we've invited them to do, and it's working because now the students are becoming the mentors too to others. And I think this just, my hope, my prayer is that we'll just be able to keep passing this on, that it becomes a part of how the community works.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, the usual suspects.
What?
Biodome.
I didn't do it.
The Flintstones in Vegas.
Viva
Fred
Las
Claus. And we could go down the list.
Sure.
You were doing all these big Hollywood films. At what point did you decide to pivot a little bit from that and go with more faith-aligned films? And
I
why?
wish it was that simple, Lance. I wish it was just a pivot.
Okay, well, tell us about that journey in a few minutes.
Well, that involves my testimony, which I'll encapsulate. So, you got me. Just like I was saying to the students last night, it's one thing to want to make a statement to the world. It's one thing to have a motivation that says, don't you know who I am? I want to leave my mark on this world. Well, this world teaches us that the way that we do that is me. What Jesus teaches is them. So the more I can bless them, the more they can bless the kingdom of Jesus Christ. So how is Stephen Baldwin saying this? That guy that went 3 times to the Playboy Mansion and smoked weed in the basement with Hugh Hefner and 6 playmates. Let me say that again. I've been in the basement wine cellar at the Playboy Mansion, smoking weed with Playboy playmates 30 years ago. So in Hollywood, that's success. That access, the ability to get in that room. Guess who took me into that room? Robert Downey Jr. And you know what he said to me as we were going down the spiral staircase into Hugh Hefner's wine cellar to smoke some weed with some playmates? He said, don't step on step 3 and 7, or it'll set off the private security alarm. Do you know how many people in Hollywood would love to know, if they're at the Playboy Mansion, how they can sneak in and not step on step 3 and 7 and get down to the inner sanctum of the hip, cool Hollywood spot where you can... I was all about that. 19, 20, 21. I was in it. I was part of it. I stayed in it. I became successful. And I thought, I'm going to show the world who I am. So here I come. And Sean Penn, you're a wussy. And within all that, I always knew God, always believed in God. I got sober off of drugs and alcohol at a very young age because of my faith, but I didn't know Jesus. Very different. I'll fast forward. Google Stephen Baldwin's testimony. It's crazy, it's wild, it's prophetic and supernatural. But all of that said, when a sequence of events happened where I was presented with the opportunity of what direction I would go in life, not my career. See, that's the difference. Most people allow their life to be led by their career. I couldn't do that. It's how I became successful. But long story short is my wife became a Christian. A year later, I followed as a result of that crazy sequence of events. And for me, there are lots of smart people in this world that are going to just tell you that, this type of a commitment to Christ is delusional. Like, you're crazy. What do you mean you can't be in a Marvel movie? That's a distraction from what I already... Stephen, maybe God has it for you to be a big Marvel guy so you can reach more people. I don't want to reach more people. I want to reach one person in this room. Because that's how God works. The fascinating thing about Jesus is he only really spoke to 12 people. And we are all still speaking about him today. As a result of just 12 people. I know no other faith that is that far-reaching as a result. I don't. I don't know if I answered his question, Matt. What was your question again? No, go ahead.
The pivot from those big
right, so
cycles.
Amen. So sorry. So the pivot for me was, okay, God, I've always known you. Now I'll do this whole Jesus freak thing. That's cool. No problem. It's real. I feel it. I'm breathing it. I know it's you. So then I just purely went into only faith-based projects. And then after a couple of years, I kind of did more faith adjacent because there are many faith-based stories out there that aren't Jesus, 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 and that's okay. But from then till now, in 18 years, I've probably done 25 or 30 of the films I've done that were, they're all faith-based. But, and again.
Do you think Hollywood's catching on to this?
This is what I was just going to talk about.
Okay.
No, Hollywood is not catching on to it, but Jesus is. So here's what I mean. So Stephen Baldwin walks away from his secular Hollywood career 18 years ago, probably when I could have done a TV series. I still get offered TV shows today. I've been asked to do The Blacklist 7 times. I'm not available. But Stephen, shouldn't you do The Blacklist so you can tell the people on the set about Jesus? No. Because if I do The Blacklist for 2 weeks and get another offer for something else, that really was what God wanted me to do, I'm locked into that contract and I can't escape. So I'd rather just be available. The irony of my journey, I think, is exactly what you just said, which is I believe God now is shifting content. I believe that in the next 15 years, you are going to see a tsunami of a shift where believers and people of faith, people who believe in do unto others and don't just do it for the money, that won't be everybody, but I think those people are coming. And wouldn't you know it, faith-based and Christian content is more profitable now than ever before. People like Mark Burnett, et cetera, are doing what they're doing. Now, guys, people like that are kind of stuck in the traditional system. And that system's changing, especially with how you make the money and how it gets delivered. What do I mean by that? Quickly, let me just explain this because it's important to the creatives that don't understand the process of distribution and making money. So now, if I'm Amazon, I can pay you the profit of your back-end residual in 30 to 90 days, not 3 to 9 months. That's not happening anymore. So now the big dogs are slow. They're trying to snap up all the little ones, but the little ones ain't going there anymore because the little guy doesn't need the big guy anymore. Except for Jesus. But I just say that because here's Stephen Baldwin, guy who said to himself, I'm not in it for the money. I want to do this for you, Lord. And now the Lord is flipping upside down that whole machine. The whole existence of that process is changing in a certain timing. So I think it's kind of funny that I'm 56 years old and probably in the next 15, 20 years, I'll have the greatest success I've ever had. But because I waited to do it for reasons of my heart and not my head and my wallet.
Matt, talk to us about the Kinema Manifesto. We talk about kinema all the time and being kinema, and it's something that the students, we talk about that on set and off set, and there were some conversations this week of, are we being kinema this week? We're putting all these hours, and I think we caught ourselves in some of that, right? I mean, it's just the reality of where we were the last 2 weeks, all in, going strong. But I'm not sure the greater public understands what we're talking about with kinema. Could you just unpack that in a minute and tell us what that is? And even if we fall short, how do we get back on track and everything?
Yeah, no, of course. About 15 years ago, I was in grad school and I was studying theology in film, not because I wanted to necessarily make faith-based films, but because I wanted to understand how, as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, my faith and my art might be more integrated. My dad's a doctor, and I got to watch him integrate his faith and his practice through the way that he not just healed people, but the way that he engaged people. That they were transformed not just by medication, but by his person and their interactions with him, the time that he invested in them. And I had a really limited imagination for how my faith might intersect with my art. So I started talking with my friends who are in the industry and asking questions about, what does it mean for you? What do you wish was different? Is there another way? Can you imagine another way of making movies? And I was hearing a lot about how people felt like they were valued for what they brought to a project with their skill or with, you know, their craft in some way. But as soon as that wasn't needed anymore, their value as a person was no longer expressed. Right. And a lot of people felt like cogs in a wheel. Right.
Or no worth.
Yeah, yeah. And so we thought, well, is there a different way? Would there be a different way? And so as we interviewed people and we started to boil down some things, we found that the teams that worked the best and the communities that were the richest and the environments that were most nurturing for people were environments where there was this balance of respect for the craft, which is key, right? We want to make our stories, tell our stories with excellence. But also respect for individuals within that community, that their time, their money, their families, their personal health, their wellness, their relationships were important. And more important than any movie that we could ever make. And that the respect for the community needed to be key. This is a collaborative art. So as I respect you, Stephen, as an individual, that also should not be at the expense of how I treat Lance or Abdul or Anna or Jeff or any of the other people that are a part of that community, or the university, the people that we're partnering with. Mrs. Beaver, who's been kind enough to let us film on her porch for 2 days, right?
Going into the third.
Yeah. And if we can create environments that are full of the love of Christ for one another, that are full of the love of Christ for the craft that we do, that are full of the love of Christ for the environment that we're trying to create and the relationships that we're trying to build, then not only do we have a better environment that people really want to work in, but we're also going to end up telling better stories and making better movies. The craft will improve. And the challenge is doing it. You know, it's easy to preach, do these things and live this way. And it's hard when there are 10 pages to shoot in 2 days and it won't stop raining.
Don't I know it, Matty?
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah. It's hard when it feels like we just need to get more people on set, and we get more people on set and it gets more complicated. And every time we fill in a gap for one team, that's one more person Stephen has to figure out how to drive someplace and park and house. And it's one more person on Abdul's call sheet.
Can I jump in? Because Grandpa's got another cool story. So I did a movie for MGM called Fled. And it was an action film with myself and a guy named Lawrence Fishburne. And I had just done Biodome. And the producer called me after they did the first screening of Biodome at MGM, and he said, hey, Steve. And I'll never forget as long as I live. I was in my rental car on Sunset Boulevard, and this guy called me up, and I answered my phone, and it was my producer, the guy who had just paid me my first 7 figures. Yes, I got 7 figures to do Biodome.
God bless Hollywood.
And I'm just telling you because I want you to know those details. I'm not bragging about the money. I want you to understand what's happening. And this guy calls me up and he goes, hey, man. Hey, Steve. I go, hey, bro. Hey, man, they're loving the movie. MGM's feeling good. And, hey, we got this thing in turnaround. It was up on the shelf. It's called Fled. We called Fishburne. He's in. We want to know if you're interested and available. We're just going to double your salary. And we just want to know if you want to be in this kind of prison action movie, black guy, white guy chained together. They break out of prison, and it's just funny and crazy. And, you know, it's just a big action funny movie. So what do you say? And I'm like, let me see if I understand you correctly. You're calling me now just to say, you want to star in a movie with Lawrence Fishburne, and we'll pay you twice the money we paid you the last time, and all I have to do is say yes. And I'll never forget this. The guy goes, Stevie B, that's how we do it in Hollywood. He said, that's how we do it in Hollywood. But I'm just giving you a snapshot of that world and this world. And what I want to impart to the students today is, don't be afraid to be 100% wrong. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Don't be afraid to voice your idea, because he'll tell you if it's wrong, or if it doesn't work, or if the timing isn't right. And here's why I say that. The director of Fled was a guy named Kevin Hooks, very talented guy. He directed a movie called Passenger 57. I don't know if you ever saw that. Brilliant action film. And we're working on Fled, and here I am with Fishburne, and I'm like way in over my head because I'm just Alec Baldwin's little brother, right? And I'm talking to Kevin Hooks, and we're talking about a scene, and he goes, no, I just want you to do it like this. And I went, it's better like this, because I know the character. And he went, no, it's better like this, and you're going to do it my way. And I went, sorry, Kevin, it's what you said. And I went, okay. And then I went to Lawrence Fishburne's trailer, who was, at the time, one of my dearest friends. And we sat down, and I went, bro, Hooks is wrong. He's wrong. I'm telling you, it's much better to do it like this. And Lawrence Fishburne goes, just like this. Right. Now, what are you going to do about that? I went, excuse me? He went, he is wrong. Now, what are you going to do about that? I don't know. What do you mean? He goes, I want you to get up now and walk out of this trailer. Knock on the door of his trailer, and when he opens it, tell him, you're wrong. I went, that's very funny. He went, get up now, go out of this room, don't say hi to anyone, Stevie. Don't stop at craft service to get a Coca-Cola. Go directly to his door now, knock on it, and when he opens it, don't say hi, just say, you're wrong. I know you're wrong. Go. And I did what he said, and sure enough, he opened the door, and I went, you're wrong. I'm telling you, my way is better. And Kevin Hooks went just like this. Okay, we'll do it your way. Just like that. It was awesome, but it was, what's the lesson? I didn't know when I had this impulse of creativity that was authentic and true to me. I didn't know I could say to somebody, hey, you know what, dude, I think you're wrong. Let's talk about it before you like squish me like a bug. But it took Lawrence Fishburne to give me the chutzpah to give it a try. And let me tell you something. It works very well for me today, except in my marriage. You know, just sometimes like you be careful with just saying to your spouse like that, you're wrong. I'm done. Thank you.
Wisdom, wisdom. I think we want to open it now to some questions from our audience, and Ryan is going to walk around with our microphone and take some questions. So, who would like to tee it up here first? We are, right up front, Anna.
What's something that you learned later on in your career that you wish that you would have known sooner?
About making movies? There's a few things, but not a lot. I think discerning between what works for you and what you're willing to listen to from other people is the hardest thing. You know, because here comes, you know, me. I think I'm the best. Seriously, when I started, it was, you know, I had something to say to the world, and Sean Penn was a wussy. I'd have kicked his butt, and he couldn't act his way out of a paper bag, and, you know, I'm better than him. Duh. That was just immaturity. But the point to that is, coming here, who's the director? What does he do? I'm being honest. Like, I'm so used to my way, my process, that it's hard to humble yourself. And I hope that makes sense, because it's mechanical. It's not ego. It's a process. And thank you, because you've been very gracious to me. I'm not even saying that. I'm sure there were moments when you were on the set and just went, okay, I hope he's not gonna go too far. You know, I'm being honest. You know what I mean? And that's, but how wonderful is it gonna be on film sets in the future when we're all thinking that way? Like, hey, what about, like, how can I help you? You know what I mean? And that's really what I tried to do here, was not push my, you know, creative force too much, but rather be still and know that Matt is the director. Get it? That's a scripture by Be Still and Know That. Yeah, okay, just checking. Just, you guys are Christians, just making sure. So that, I hope that made sense. The answer is, try to be a little more patient with the process, and don't be so in a hurry with that anxiety of the process. Breathe and chill and just allow it to happen. You know what I mean? Because God's within all of us telling you what to do and what you want to strive for and your vision and your passion. You'll know when somebody's influence on that is wrong, and you'll use what works and go forward. Others?
Hi, Stephen. Is the secret to success ginger ale?
What do you say?
Is the secret to success ginger ale?
Is the secret to success ginger ale? Well, organic ginger ale is one of them. Yeah, thanks, Steve Areno. I appreciate that. And
Little inside humor going on.
to be honest, you could use a little more ginger ale. Just yeah, love ya. But
Next question.
What would you tell us that are going into the industry, and you say that we're going to be better, we're going to be better than you guys, but what are the things that you would say to us right now in this moment that we need to know before we take this next step into this whole industry and this whole process?
Great question. You know why? I think, I don't want to say this about the future, but if Stephen Baldwin ever teaches a film class anywhere ever in the future, I think the first question I would ask the students is, are you sure this is really for you? Mm-hmm. No, but don't, wait a second, don't just go, well, yeah. I've done it 126 times. And are you sure that it's your calling? See, I thought I was going to be an actor, but what I see now is that I'm going to be a director. But I haven't directed anything yet, because I respect the position of director so much, and I think it requires so much knowledge, I'm not ready. Not just saying it. I'm not. That's where God's got me. The films I am going to make will change the world forever. They will be so amazing. But I'm not ready. So I think everybody should say, if I love this art form, what can I give to it? What makes it fun for me? Is it wardrobe? Is it the sound? What is it? Is it editing? Is it special effects? There's so many different things. So much to the process. When I talked to young people, when I did that music video, I said, think about how many hands touch a movie. Not here. On a Marvel movie, on an animation, there are thousands of animators. A good friend of mine is a gentleman named Ian Sugarman. He works with Chase Bank. And he owns the second largest animation company in the world. And he has 6,000 animators worldwide that work for his company. I mean, think about you going to a movie theater and 6,000 people touched what you're seeing. You don't know that. But that's my point. And so I think to encapsulate that, it's just prayerfully think about why you love this, and then focus in on how you think you can bless it with your talents, and do that with the greatest focus and commitment. Yeah.
Great question. Good job.
So I know you were talking about the switch and the tidal wave of film within the next 10 to 15 years of maybe not necessarily films about Jesus, but more faith-based films and or artists working with that. Do you think there's any correlation potentially with that and also the moving away from Hollywood to places like Atlanta, Chicago, even now New York, and the different hubs across the United States, and it not being so centralized?
Yeah, excellent question. Yeah, and Lance and I have been talking about that sort of thing, because you're going to see geographically exactly what you're saying, but not because Hollywood is dying, geographically, Hollywood's growing, because the big fish always eats the little fish. That's the way of the world. But like we said before, the little fish doesn't need the big fish anymore. Excuse me. So without getting into what I think God's doing and shifts, spiritually, I think that the structure of the system of content creation has been what it's been traditionally forever. And like a Trojan horse, you've had faith-based people in there for generations that were unable to have an impact on it because there wasn't that shift of the ability to provide faith-based content directly to the consumer. I have a new company of my own starting pretty soon called Foundation Studios. And the way God showed me how to do this, and the way I've presented it to financial people who now want to give me $150 million to do the company, the way I did that was, I said to the investor people, I said, the highest grossing pictures in Hollywood annually are rated what? The most successful movies every year in Hollywood that make the most money are rated what? G. The G-rated films and content make 80% of the most profit annually. And yet, 70% of the content created is after the G rating. Why? If Hollywood exists to make money, why is it that most of the films that are made are not within the model of the most profitability? Well, that's quite simple. The spirit of darkness runs Hollywood. And the spirit of darkness wants to message to the people what it wants to message. If I went to Warren Buffett right now and I said, hey, doesn't that financially make no sense? He'd be like, gee whiz. I'd be like, hey, Warren, why do you think that is? He would go, Satan? No. But isn't that weird? So my new company is going to go up to PG-13. And 90% of what we're going to make is G-rated. So I can make so much money, I can just keep going. You know what I'm saying? Praise God. I'm not smart. I'm not. It's simple. That doesn't mean I'm going to make G-rated movies the rest of my life. I'm going to make all kinds of stuff, whatever God tells me. But isn't it interesting now that the model of content creation is changed? That's my answer to your question. That's the shift that's happening. A greater awareness of the logic and simplicity of what the people want is shifting. Unfortunately, young Christians get to Hollywood and they go, hey man, you got to do it like this. And Christians go, hey man, I want to be in the game. And they compromise. The presence of the Holy Spirit is so deeply within me, I'm so scared of God, I can't compromise. Like I was saying last night, when they talked to me about Biodome 2, I told them it's got to be like this or I can't do it. They went, cool. Did I stand up boldly for Jesus? No. I simply said, this is what I can do, and this is what I can't do. So, AKA, I'm giving a little side note there, which is when y'all get to Hollywood, stick to your cross, not your guns. Stick to your cross. Thank you.
We have time for one or two more.
I know you mentioned.
Until 2:30, boss. Yeah.
I know you gave us a little bit about your experience on our set and how we have run pretty smoothly, even for a bunch of people with very little experience. But I want you to sort of expand on how this set with even though we're just students, but how does our set compare to a professional set of the same sort of scale? So with all of your experience, tell us what it was like to work with us, assuming that we weren't just students.
Okay, so there's two answers to that. There's the technical side and the production side, right? When Stephen Baldwin gets here, I already know the numbers. I know the budget and the number of days. So when he says, yesterday we did 10, 11 pages, that was the most you'd all done in one day. That's because we weren't so tired. We were just tired enough to know our lines well enough to get through it, because that's kind of the speed of how things happen. But to make my point, on the production side, I can't factor that in, you know what I mean? Because you don't have the correct crew. My trailer should have had 3 people running it. That's not what this production is. That's not what this production's about. This production was about how do we squeeze all that into a smaller box. So that's the answer on the production side is it was very good, all things considered, for what you had to work with. On the technical side, it was better than anything I've ever experienced before.
Can you-
Kudos to Huntington University.
How about snaps for that? One more? Yeah, please, Professor Long.
Could you speak a little bit to your process or your advice to young actors who are just coming into the business like you said, in a different environment than the one that you came into?
Like I said, there's just stuff I'm going to do in the future that's going to change a lot. So anybody who knows method acting knows there's a process of learning that process. If you're a Christian, you have to be very careful about what spirits you engage. So I'm in the process now with some theologians of creating a method of acting that's from the Bible. And that's all I can say about it for confidentiality reasons. But imagine like a Christian method of acting. I'm developing that right now. It would be similar to the same Stanislavski, call it whatever you want. Stella Adler, there's lots of teachings and, all that stuff that go back, hundreds of years. And if you research that, you'll see where it come from. So I like to say to young people or young creatives, who is the creator? And if he is the creator, why wouldn't you tap into the if our goal as thespians is, to express the most honest truth, well, Jesus Christ is the most honest truth. So his spirit is the greatest opportunity for the greatest performance, the most natural performance. Now that's a little creepy because you can philosophically say this and that, and technically in the natural, Stephen, you can only control so much. That's not what I mean. Acting is leaving yourself alone, trusting, and being at a place where you're so comfortable it comes out of you a certain way, and you go, "Wow, that was something happened. That was special. That was unique, different. Touching, whatever." So, I think that my advice to any young actor, a believer or not, is if you pray and you would ask God, if you believe in him, to speak to you and show you what he has for you in that experience, I think he would speak to you. I think you'd hear from him. That's number one. Number two, I think acting is the most difficult thing in the world. It's the hardest thing to do. Now, golf is a 2-inch ball that you must get into a 4-inch hole over 400 yards in 4 swings. But if I asked Tiger Woods to do Shakespeare in 9 months, he would suck. But I could pretend to play golf in a film convincingly. That's the difference. It's like public speaking. It's like that personality, you hear, that scary sound, who runs toward it, who runs away from it, right? It's so many dimensions to think about. But I think acting is something, and by the way, I've been very wrong about this. I've met many actors who, were the most introverted, but some of the most introverted people in the world have become some of the most brilliant actors and actresses. So pray about it and seek it if it's a passion. But I think it comes with so much rejection. That's the part I'm getting to. There's a process. Even these guys, you're going to audition for these guys. And they're going to hire the best person or the person that made the most sense. I'll tell you the irony really quickly. I'm about to go make a movie soon about rodeo and country life, kind of about bull riders and rodeo and country stuff. And I produced a movie 3 years ago that this woman auditioned for, and she was the second choice only because this other actor was better with this other actress. So the best actress didn't get the job. the actress that worked in the chemistry with the star got the job. Well, wouldn't you know it, the young man I want to star in my movie I'm producing next year is the son of the woman who didn't get the job. So now my producing partner calls his agent and says, hey, Stephen Baldwin and I want to know his availability, and all of a sudden we find out his mother is the woman that we didn't hire. So I had to like reach out to this woman and go, hey, listen, I really wanted you for my movie. Please let me have your son. You know? And now, isn't it interesting that that woman and her husband most likely will become producers with us on the film. Her husband is a worship leader who will now do all the music for the film. And the son will star in the picture. And perhaps some of you girls know this guy, Luke Benworth, I believe is his name. Very handsome fella. And he just did a Christian film not too long ago that was very successful and very good. So I hope that answers the question. Again, I digressed as usual, but I just love the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, Holy Spirit-ness of all of that.
Okay. Well, hey, let's thank Stephen Baldwin for a wonderful time. And Matt Webb, too. Matt.